I don't generally think that an author owes anything to a reader, except in the very most abstract way. An author owes it to the reader to be honest and to be mindful of the reader's time. But earlier this month, I spent a terrific week reading Larry McMurtry's amazing 850-page western, Lonesome Dove. And I really liked it. Somewhere at around like page 790, I was so in love with the book that rather than going forward, I went back and I read the introduction. Because I was enjoying the book so much, I wanted to read something about the book. It's a weird impulse that I get. But so I went to the introduction. It was 2 pages long, and I was like, I'll read this and I'll jump right back to where I was. So I read the 2-page introduction by Larry McMurtry, and McMurtry spoils the ending. In the second page of the book, spoils it in like a really flagrant, almost like self-immolating way, which, as I understand it, was kind of McMurtry's bent as a writer, is that he was constantly dodging praise and effacing his talent, like he dismissed anyone who suggested he was like a notable American author. But anyway, the ending, from the way he described it in the introduction, was so fucking sad, like impossibly tragic. And because from the way things looked, at page 790, it seemed I just could not see that tragedy on the horizon by page 850. And I was like, no. There's no way it ends like that. He was just having a laugh. That guy, McMurtry, he's taking the piss. He's waxing his carrot. He's pulling my pretzel. But I wasn't just frustrated to think that he had spoiled the ending, although that's bad enough. And incidentally, this is a digression, I really loved Nick Hornby's column that he used to write for The Guardian. It was called like Reading in the Tub. And it was about the discord every month between the books that he bought that month versus the books that he actually read that month. And in one of these essays, he's talking about this new line of Charles Dickens reprints that had recently come out, and how for each one of these handsome new volumes, there was like a lofty kind of muckety-muck author contributing an introduction. And so here's Nick Hornby. He was in his 40s, I think, at the time, and he picks up a handsome new volume of a Charles Dickens novel that he happens never to have read. So he's reading the introduction, and same thing that McMurtry does. Like 2 pages into the introduction, the contributing writer spoils the ending of the novel. And Nick Hornby argues, I think rightly, that I understand, contributing editor, that you feel that because this novel is whatever 125 years old, that it no longer has powers to seduce or to surprise. But fuck you, let me try to read this and experience a Dickensian story as it was intended to be experienced. Don't ruin it. I am totally in Nick Hornby's corner on that, but I'm also weirdly torn on that thing about spoilers, because I think we should preserve the integrity of a novel's secrets, at least in the introduction of that novel, even if it is 200 years old, whatever. And yet at the same time, I think it's completely ridiculous for anyone to complain if like you reveal to them that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. And I don't know why that is. Like, why am I so much less sympathetic to spoiling a 40-year-old movie than a 200-year-old novel? I still don't know how Don Quixote ends, and I would be upset if you told me how it ends. Although, to be honest, I know the person I would actually be upset with is myself, because here I am, I'm 30 years old, and even though I have always known myself to be the kind of person who gives a fuck about the ending of Don Quixote, I never in 30 years took the initiative to read the ending of Don Quixote. Obviously, I had enough time to do it. I read Salem's Lot twice. If at the age of 20, I had made some small, humble task of it, like, okay, before masturbating, I must read 2 pages of Don Quixote, I would have zipped through it in like a weekend. It's not just that I'm annoyed, though, with McMurtry for spoiling the ending of his own book in the introduction to the book. The other complicating thing is that, like, I misunderstood the spoiler? I misunderstood that when McMurtry in his introduction cites the doomed fate of one particular character, how a certain young and innocent character dies a horrible freak death, he was actually referencing something that happens in the sequel. So here I am, I'm reading Lonesome Dove, and in the course of reading this book, I have discovered and fallen in love with a certain character. And now I'm learning that the character doesn't die in this book, and so I feel like relieved, right? Except no, now it's another problem. I started to wonder, like, after 800 pages, am I suddenly expecting something of a writer? Like, it occurred to me that if an author fucks up the ending of an otherwise perfectly enjoyable 200-page novel, I'm not all that fussed. But if you fuck up the ending of an 850-page novel and I've read the whole thing, I'm gonna break a television. But also, it's actually a really clever and poetic ending. The tragic one that he was describing, it's just sad. And I think what I was noticing in myself was a sense of entitlement. Like, I have given you 850 pages of my time, you better leave me with a smile. In his introduction, McMurtry mentions that one of our innocent young heroes does end up dying a violent freak death. And when I read that and I thought that was going to be the ending of Lonesome Dove, I was like, if this Larry? But then Lonesome Dove ended, and the character was still alive. It turns out, as I said, he dies in the sequel, and so I reached the last page of Lonesome Dove, and I was like, whew, thank God he made it. But did he? I don't know. Like, can I say that I'm happy with the character's fate simply because he's still alive at the end of this volume when I know that he's gonna die in the next one? Does the impending sadness of that second volume cast a shadow over this one so that I can't say, oh, it ended happily? Those feelings and more accompanied my conclusion of Larry McMurtry's masterpiece, Lonesome Dove, which I do recommend, grudgingly.